Archangel Michael says, the night carried a weight in its silence, and behind closed doors, a heart broke for you. Someone you know could not hold back the tears, their chest trembling as they whispered your name into the darkness. They have realized something they never wanted to admit before, and now the truth is pressing on their soul like never before. Their mind replayed moments with you like a fragile film reel, each scene cutting deeper than the last. They saw your smile, your presence, and your absence, and the contrast shattered them. In that private hour, they felt the full gravity of what they did and what they lost. It wasn't a cry of weakness, it was the sound of regret finally catching up with them. Type Amen to get blessing 333. They remembered the words they spoke to you, words that were sharp, careless, and full of distance. Now, those same words echoed like ghosts in their mind, and they wished more than anything to take them back. They could not sleep because every shadow in the room looked like a reminder of you. Even the air seemed heavier, carrying the scent of what once was. They sat by the window, watching the quiet streets outside, wondering how life had taken such a turn. It wasn't about what happened yesterday or the day before, this was years in the making. And last night, the truth they tried to avoid finally demanded to be seen. They knew you were not just another person who crossed their path, you were the turning point they failed to protect. Type Amen to get blessing 444. They wanted to reach out to you immediately, but their hands froze before the phone. Every word they thought of felt too small for the weight of what they needed to say. Because now they know, the silence they gave you all this time has hurt more than anything else. It has carved a gap between you that only truth can bridge. Archangel Michael says, this awakening in their heart is not by accident, it has been guided. For a long time, they were blind to what you truly meant, blinded by pride, ego, and distraction. But last night, the veil lifted, and they saw you in the way heaven always intended. Now, they are left in awe of what they almost destroyed completely. Type Amen to get blessing 777. The tears that rolled down their face were not just sorrow, they were a cleansing. It was as if their soul had been locked in a room for years, and last night the door burst open. They remembered your kindness when they didn't deserve it, your patience when they tested it, and your faith when they doubted you. These memories didn't come as comfort, they came as a storm. They walked around their home, touching objects you once saw or gave, as if trying to feel your presence again. Every corner felt different, emptier, colder, as though your absence had drained the light from the walls. They understood now that no one has filled the space you left behind. And deep inside, they fear no one ever will. Type Amen to get blessing 999. They could not shake the sound of your voice from their mind, and it became the lullaby and the punishment of the night. The past, once ignored, became a fire that lit up every dark corner of their conscience. They whispered apologies into the air, hoping somehow they would reach you. But even as the words left their lips, they knew they were late. Archangel Michael says, you must know this truth because it is a turning point in the bond between you. Their heart is now marked with the lesson they cannot unlearn, that losing you is losing a part of themselves. Last night was not just about tears, it was about a soul finally bending to the weight of divine truth. And from here, their actions will be different, because they will no longer deny what you mean to them. Type Amen to get blessing 222. They may not yet have the courage to face you, but their world has shifted entirely. Every choice they make from this day will be influenced by the realization that you are irreplaceable. And even if they remain silent for now, know that in the quiet hours, they are thinking of you more than ever. They are replaying the last time they saw you, wishing they had held you a little longer. The tears they shed have left their eyes red and their heart raw. They are not the same as they were yesterday, because the truth has reshaped them. You are no longer just a memory to them, you are the missing piece of their piece. And no matter how far they have gone, last night reminded them that their path will always lead back to you. Type Amen to get blessing 111. They woke up this morning with swollen eyes, the heaviness of last night still wrapped around them like a shadow. The pillow still carried the traces of their tears, proof of the pain that refused to fade with the dawn. Every sound outside felt too loud, too real, compared to the quiet ache they carried inside. They moved slowly, their body heavy as though every step was an effort. Their thoughts kept drifting back to moments they thought they had forgotten, yet now they came in perfect detail. They could see your face, your eyes, the subtle movements when you listened to them. And each memory was another reminder of what they had taken for granted. Type Amen to get blessing 555. If you wish to express your support further, you have the option to give super thanks, with contributions of up to $20. Archangel Michael says, the reason they felt this so deeply last night is because the time has come for truth to rise. For months, maybe years, they pushed away the reality of how much you mattered. They told themselves stories to justify their distance, but none of them could hide the truth forever. Now, heaven has allowed the realization to crash through their walls. They held their phone in their hand, opening your name in their contacts. But every time they thought to write a message, their fingers hesitated over the keyboard. The words, "I'm sorry," didn't feel enough, and "I miss you" felt like an understatement. So they put the phone down again, letting the silence hang heavy between you. Type Amen to get blessing 888. They thought about the last time they saw you in person. The way your eyes held a story you didn't speak, the way your smile didn't quite reach your heart. Now they understand why, you were already feeling the distance they refused to acknowledge. And that knowledge cuts deeper than any words could. They remember a night long ago when you stayed up for them, listening as they poured out their worries. You didn't judge, didn't rush them, you just stayed, holding space for their pain. They realize now they never gave you the same in return. And that is the part that breaks them the most. Type Amen to get blessing 444. They pace the room, restless, replaying the chain of choices that led to this gap between you. Every "I'll call later," every "I'm too busy," now feels like another nail in the coffin of what you shared. They can't undo the time that has passed, but last night showed them they must act before it's too late again. Because the thought of you slipping away completely terrifies them. Archangel Michael says, this is not just their awakening, it is also a sign for you. You needed to know the weight of your presence in their life, even if they couldn't show it before. You needed to know that your absence is not emptiness, it is a wound they can no longer hide. And last night, that wound bled openly for the first time. Type Amen to get blessing 999. They sat down at their table and started writing a letter by hand. It wasn't perfect, the words came messy, smudged with tears. But it was the first time they tried to speak from the depths of their heart without fear. Every sentence was another thread trying to stitch back what had been torn. The letter wasn't just an apology, it was a confession. It told you how they had thought of you more times than they could count, even when they stayed silent. It admitted the mistakes, the selfishness, the moments they wished they could erase. And it ended with the only truth that mattered, that they still care, more than you know. Type Amen to get blessing 222. They don't know if they will have the courage to send it. Part of them fears your reaction, fears the possibility that you have moved on. But another part of them hopes, desperately, that you will read it and see the sincerity in their words. Because last night taught them that the risk of rejection is nothing compared to the pain of regret. They stepped outside for a moment, breathing in the cool morning air. Even the sunrise looked different, softer, as though the world was giving them a small piece of hope. They thought of the future, and for the first time in a long while, they imagined it with you in it again. The thought brought fresh tears, but this time they carried a strange, fragile hope. Type Amen to get blessing 777. They went back inside and sat quietly in the corner of the room where you once sat. The chair still seemed to hold an invisible warmth, as if a trace of your presence had never left. Their fingers traced along the wooden edge, remembering the way you used to rest your hand there. Every object in the room now seemed like a silent witness to the story you both lived. The books, the cup, even the folded blanket, all carried echoes of moments shared. They realized they had been living surrounded by your reminders, but only now truly felt them. And that realization burned in their chest like an ember refusing to fade. Type Amen to get blessing 555. Archangel Michael says, their tears were a breaking point, but also a doorway. They can no longer run from what their heart knows. You are tied to them in a way that no time, no distance, and no mistakes can truly sever. Last night forced them to face the truth without any shield. They thought of the days they could have spoken but chose silence. The times they could have stood beside you but let you face the storm alone. Those choices replayed over and over, each one sharper than the last. And now, they wish for just one more chance to choose differently. Type Amen to get blessing 444. The world outside kept moving, but for them, time felt frozen. They sat there, lost between past and present, unsure how to step forward. Every plan they had seemed irrelevant compared to the urgency of reaching you. But fear still held them by the wrist, whispering that they might already be too late. They remembered how your laughter once filled the room like sunlight breaking through clouds. It wasn't just joy. It was safety, warmth, something they could never replicate with anyone else. That memory made their chest tighten until the tears came again. This time, they didn't try to stop them. Type Amen to get blessing 333. They stood in front of the mirror, staring at their own reflection. It was strange to see their own face and know how much it had changed since you last saw it. Not just in age, but in the weight carried behind the eyes. A weight that came from all the words left unsaid. Archangel Michael says, they are being pulled towards you not by coincidence, but by divine timing. There is an appointed moment for every truth to be revealed, and last night was their awakening. The walls they built have finally started to crack. And through those cracks, your memory has flooded back in full force. Type Amen to get blessing 999. They opened a drawer and found something they had forgotten, a photo of you together. It wasn't staged or perfect, it was a candid moment, pure and real. Seeing it now, they felt the impact of how much had been lost. But they also felt a spark, the belief that maybe, just maybe, it wasn't too late. They pressed the photo to their chest, closing their eyes as if it could somehow connect them to you. The room around them faded, and for a brief moment, it felt like you were right there. They whispered your name again, softer this time, almost like a prayer. And the silence after seemed to answer back. Type Amen to get blessing 222. They sat still for a long time, holding that photo as if it could dissolve the distance between you. Every detail in it seemed alive now, the tilt of your head, the glimmer in your eyes, the way your hand rested so naturally near theirs. It wasn't just a memory anymore, it was proof of something they could never truly let go. When they finally set the photo down, their breathing felt uneven. They paced the room, restless, as though the walls themselves were pressing in with the weight of all they had left unsaid. The urge to see you became almost physical, a pull they could not ignore. It was as if every part of them was being drawn back to you. Type Amen to get blessing 555. Archangel Michael says, the shift within them is irreversible now. The tears they cried last night marked the end of denial and the beginning of truth. The feelings they once pushed away have surged back, stronger and undeniable. And heaven will not allow them to hide from this any longer. They thought of the times they had watched you from afar, secretly hoping you would notice them. Back then, they convinced themselves they had more time. But now they see how quickly moments can vanish, leaving only echoes. And that fear fuels the fire in their chest. Type Amen to get blessing 444. They moved towards the window again, staring out into the dim light. The streets were waking, yet for them, the world still felt like it belonged to last night. The sound of a distant car, the faint chatter of early risers, none of it mattered. Their focus was on you, and only you. They picked up their pen again, continuing the letter they started earlier. Every line seemed to pour from somewhere deeper than thought, as if their soul itself was speaking. The ink smudged in places where their hand trembled, betraying the intensity of what they felt. And with each word, they felt closer to you. Type Amen to get blessing 333. They imagined you reading it, your eyes scanning the page, your breath catching at certain confessions. It made their heart race, but also filled them with a fragile hope. They knew they couldn't control how you would respond, but they needed you to know. Because silence had already cost them too much. Archangel Michael says, the connection between you is not fading, it is awakening. The tears that fell last night watered the roots of something that was never truly dead. This is a divine reminder that some bonds are too deep to break. And now, the choice will soon rest in your hands. Type Amen to get blessing 999. They folded the letter slowly, their fingers lingering on the edges as if sealing a part of their soul inside. It felt heavier than paper, carrying all the words that had been trapped in silence for so long. They placed it on the table, staring at it as though it might disappear if they looked away. The morning light crept through the curtains, brushing against their tired face. They had not slept, yet they didn't feel exhausted, only restless. Every breath they took seemed to carry a mix of fear and anticipation. They knew that once this letter reached you, nothing would ever be the same again. Type Amen to get blessing 555. Archangel Michael says, last night's tears were not a sign of weakness but a surrender to truth. The truth that they have carried you in their heart even in the moments they pretended not to. And now, that truth has grown too large to keep hidden. The universe will keep pushing them until the words find you. They thought about the places you once went together. The small cafe where you both sat for hours, the park bench where laughter came so easily. Each memory felt alive, as though waiting for you both to return and finish the story. And that thought wrapped around them like a fragile thread of hope. Type Amen to get blessing 444. They reached for their phone again, scrolling to your name. This time, their hand didn't shake as much, though their heart still pounded. They typed a simple message, nothing dramatic, just a beginning. Then they deleted it, replaced it, and deleted it again. It wasn't that they didn't know what to say, it was that no words felt big enough. How could they condense years of silence into a single text? How could they ask for a chance without sounding desperate? Yet they knew they could not let another day pass in silence. Type Amen to get blessing 333. The letter on the table kept pulling their attention back. They imagined walking to your door, placing it in your hands, and seeing your reaction. Would your eyes soften, or would you turn away? They didn't know, but the risk felt worth it now. Archangel Michael says, the fear they feel is proof of how much this matters. They could ignore the ache, bury the truth again, but it would always return stronger. Because you are not just someone they once knew, you are the person who changed their entire path. And last night made them realize they cannot live without acknowledging that. Type Amen to get blessing 999. They stood from the table, the folded letter still clutched tightly in their hand. The air in the room felt heavy, almost charged, as if even the walls were aware of what was about to happen. Their heart beat in a slow, deliberate rhythm, matching the weight of every step they took. They walked to the door and paused, staring at the handle for a long moment. It was strange how something as small as opening a door could feel like crossing a line that could never be uncrossed. Beyond it was the possibility of healing, or the possibility of more heartbreak. But doing nothing was no longer an option. Type Amen to get blessing 555. Archangel Michael says, their decision is being watched and guided. They are not stepping forward alone, unseen hands are pushing them toward the truth. Even if they doubt themselves, the path is already unfolding under their feet. Last night was the breaking point, today is the beginning of action. They stepped outside, the morning air cool against their skin. The street felt quieter than usual, almost as though the world had slowed down for them. They could hear the faint rustle of leaves, the distant hum of traffic, but it all felt muted. All they could focus on was the thought of seeing you again. Type Amen to get blessing 444. They walked slowly at first, as though trying to steady their thoughts with each step. Their mind was a flood of memories, your laughter, your voice, the way your presence shifted a room. The weight of the letter in their pocket reminded them of why they were doing this. Every second brought them closer, and yet the closer they came, the heavier their chest felt. They reached the corner of the street where they used to wait for you. For a moment, they stopped and let the memories wash over them. It was almost too much, the longing, the regret, the hope. But it also gave them the courage to keep moving. Type Amen to get blessing 333. Archangel Michael says, there is a divine alignment happening now. The moment their tears fell last night, threads of fate began weaving differently. Your name, your image, your essence, it is all surrounding them like a calling they can't ignore. And this walk is more than just a visit, it's the first step toward rewriting the ending. They could see your street now, the familiar row of houses standing in quiet patience. Their breathing grew shallow, and their hands felt colder. But their feet didn't stop, something deep inside was propelling them forward. This was no longer about whether you would accept them, it was about making sure you knew. Type Amen to get blessy. Corner that had bent along the walk. The paper felt warm from their grasp, as if it had absorbed a part of their heartbeat. Every line inside it seemed to glow with urgency that words alone could barely hold. They reached the step and paused, listening to the hush that hangs before a turning. Somewhere a bird called once and then fell quiet, as though it understood the gravity here. Their hand lifted toward the bell and hovered, steady but trembling from the inside out. They placed the letter against their chest and breathed until the air settled. They imagined handing it to you, imagined your eyes meeting theirs and staying. A calm rose slowly, not loud or dramatic, just firm enough to move them forward. Type Amen to get blessing 111. They pressed the bell and felt the small vibration travel up their arm. The sound faded into the hall beyond the door, and silence flowed back like a tide. They kept standing tall, letting the moment expand until it found its own shape. Footsteps skimmed the floor on the other side, a gentle pattern like rain. The latch whispered, and the door opened a fraction that felt larger than a mile. Light spilled through the gap and brushed across their face like a first forgiveness. They lifted the letter into that light, offering it without a single wasted word. Their eyes held steady, anchored by everything last night had made clear. Time thinned around them, as if this single exchange was the center of many years. Type Amen to get blessing 222. They did not try to explain the entire past at the threshold. The paper in their hand carried enough truth to unfold the rest in time. All that mattered was that it crossed from their heart to your hands. The door opened wider, and the hallway's warmth met the morning air. They felt the ache behind their ribs loosen, not vanishing, but softening. A fragile steadiness stitched through them like a thread that finally found its pattern. They placed the letter gently in your palm, careful not to crowd the moment. The quiet between you was clean, not empty, the kind that can hold new beginnings. They nodded once, a vow sealed inside a simple movement. They stepped back to let space breathe, resisting every urge to rush the future. The street sound returned in a hush of tires and distant voices, respectful and far. Their hands fell to their sides, open now, unarmed by pride. Type Amen to get blessing 666. They turned slightly toward the sun and let the warmth find their face. Clarity settled like dust after a rain, soft and inevitable. Whatever comes next will arrive on the strength of last night's truth. They began to walk, not escaping, only allowing the letter to speak first. Each step felt aligned, not with certainty, but with honesty. The world seemed newly drawn, edges sharper, colors truer. A breath filled their chest and did not catch this time. Hope did not surge or crash, it flowed like a steady river. The ache remained, but it no longer ruled them. They glanced once at the house before turning the corner. The image fixed inside them like a lantern that does not burn out. Something holy and ordinary had finally met in one place. Type Amen to get blessing 888. They carried the morning with them as they moved back through familiar streets. The cafe's door chimed as they passed, and the memory of your laughter rose and settled. They could almost feel the old chair waiting for a new hour. They reached the small park and took the bench that faced the fountain. The water's endless arc felt like the shape of everything they could not say last night. Now the sound soothed rather than stung, a rhythm their breathing adopted. They opened their hands on their lap and let the day rest there. No more rehearsed speeches, no more armored silence. Just the quiet knowledge that the letter now lived where it needed to be. They closed their eyes and let gratitude rise slowly through the tiredness. It was not loud, not triumphant, just grateful to still be allowed a path. The path was not straight, but it was theirs again. Type Amen to get blessing 444.